thanks everybody for coming tonight. We've got a very interesting topic tonight. We're gonna do some presentations on this topic. There will be plenty of time at the end for us to have Q&A. We're super excited that everybody came and joined with us. I am going to put my contact information in the chat. And so we're going to go through a little bit of our presentation tonight. So it's going to take a little bit of time here. Let me just make sure this is the first time I've actually presented. So if I do a really good job, we need to have like applause for me or something at the end. Because I'm always nervous presenting what I have to actually drive. Oh.
You're driving? Did he give you? Here.
It's scary.
Yeah, I'll help you out.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. See, it ends up on the wrong screen for me. I don't know what happens. Hold on, I'm gonna have to do this again. I'm sorry.
No, it looks good. What was wrong?
Yeah, but I couldn't see to move the slides. I don't know. Just gonna try it this way. Sorry, folks. What happens when you let me take care of technology?
He's a pro.
All right. All right, we got it, I think. Everybody can see that good now?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Jim.
Awesome, very good. I'm very excited. So thanks everybody for showing up tonight. As you know, we do this every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central. This is our SEC attorney. We've hidden and disguised them. I'm only kidding. So this presentation should not be any offer, any solicitation. And even though this webinar is loaded with more lawyers than we normally have, this should not be construed as legal advice. We are explaining what we understand and what we've learned. And I want to make sure that you talk to your attorney about anything that you personally are going to be doing, so you are responsible for yourself. So a little bit, we're going to do a little bit of who Massive Capital is, 506B to C, and then why is this happening? We're going to talk a little bit about our experiences. We're going to do some Q&A at the end. So a little bit about the Massive Capital team. On the left-hand side, you have our three partners, Sanjay, Shar, and Mike. They are our fearless leaders of Massive Capital. Across the top, there's a lot of us. We're getting bigger and bigger. Soon we're going to need like 2 slides. So at the top row is everything to do with investor relations and marketing. And then on the second row, we have Brad and Ramiz and Bhaskar and Jen. They're everything to do with acquisitions. Angela, and then Jonathan, who's featured tonight, is our legal counsel, and Senate, who runs our educational program. I always let Mike talk on this slide because he does a really good job of this one.
Actually, this is Sharier's favorite slide.
I know.
I have another one I like, but this is
too
cool.
confusing for my mind.
The cool piece, really is just as thinking across the process of what is the value chain, right? How do you make money throughout real estate? And it starts with land, right? So all the real estate starts with land. In some way, land, the banking and packaging it, and basically some of the land banking then puts you into the position to do the development. So as Massive Capital, we come into this part as doing land development and then building the actual buildings, the actually doing the developments. And then what we do is we partner with people right now in this area. So we find a credible, great partner to go work with. We've got a few opportunities we're currently doing. X Space is one. Our Georgetown townhouses is the other that we partner with a couple great developers in this area. And then Massive Capital, brings in, we come with our expertise on the finance side and, the doability of the deal. As we move forward, after you built the constructed it, now you're going to operate it. And sometimes we'll go and buy Class C, Class B properties and renovate them and do CapEx on them. That's the building renovation, adding value add opportunities. This is our strength, bread and butter for massive capital in this area. And we're not into the redevelopment. We're talking with some people about some of this. I think more along the lines of like, hey, I'm going to change something from multifamily or a student housing to condos, or maybe I'm going to change an office to multifamily type of thing. So that's the value chain and where we fit. And, you know, the work we do, it all lines up through this process, and the underwriting ties together with everything we do there. Thank you, Trevor.
Yep, my pleasure. So this is a little bit about our deals and where all of our deals are. Those of you that come every week, we don't want to go through here, but you can see where we're focused on deals. Here's a list of all of our deals, and if they're closed, then all the ones in the bottom were closed last year. So we're super excited to be able to work on so many exciting projects. Tonight we're featuring Todd. I put a good looking picture of him here and a little bit of a description. You'll get to meet him later, but he is our in-house securities attorney, not in-house, sorry. He is our outside legal counsel, and he also works a lot with Jonathan, who we mentioned on the other slide, and we appreciate him taking the time to be able to come here and all of the great work that he does for Massive Capital. So again, this is a little reminder. We're going to talk about 506B syndication. What does that mean? 506C syndication. How do you go from a B to a C? Why is this happening more? And then we've got a little bit of a case study of one that we are actually doing right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about it here. And I'm going to do all of this, but we have lots of folks here for asking questions later on. So a 506B is basically an offering as securities, and it can be only offered to people that you have a substantive relationship. Now that's a big gray area. What does substantive mean? And it means that you better be able to prove and document that you have had a relationship with this person, and you understand that they understand that they are investing in a security and what the risks are involved. Now, normally, we're going to talk a little bit more, but normally when you're first starting out, you're often doing a 506B syndication. And the reason is all of your friends and family may not already be accredited. So you are getting people to invest in your syndication. You're doing it with your friends and family. And as I said, they may not all be accredited. And so this is why a lot of smaller deals or sponsors start out in the 506B realm, just because that's who they're connected with. And then what is an accredited investor? They're not in there. So accredited investor is the person that has a net worth of at least $1 million, excluding their primary residence, as an individual, a salary over 200,000, and married 300,000. Again, quite simple terms. There are some other things that may get you there. They're all very complicated and not necessarily the topic for tonight. And even now, right now, while the government is talking about putting in some additional changes, but that hasn't happened yet. So there's no sense worrying about it a little bit. So a 506C syndication is only open to accredited investors. So you must be accredited. You must meet all of the conditions that we talked about before. And oh, I'm sorry, I missed on the first one here. I'm so sorry, I missed the point. On here, this particular offering, you're only allowed 35 non-accredited investors. So that's one thing that you need to make sure that you understand. So you're doing a 506B, you can only have 35 non-accredited investors. And on this particular offering, investors basically accredit themselves, say, yes, I am accredited. And it's not necessarily that you will ask for further documentation of their accreditation. So I'm so sorry, I missed that point. And then on a 506, as opposed to a 506B, you can advertise freely. So what that means is you can talk in any sort of marketplace, any form. If you were doing a 506B and you go to a lunch meeting that you don't know everybody, and you say, hey, I got a new deal that I'm working on. Anybody who'd like to know about it, come and talk to me. That is incorrect. You are soliciting somebody to invest in a syndication that you do not have a relationship with. And again, we're more talking about the switch, but I wanted to make sure that we talk about the generals. And on this one, the sponsor has the duty to verify accreditation. And accreditation can be done by third parties, by accountants, by proving your salary income. So there are lots of ways that you can accredit, prove that you're accredited. Okay, so switching from a 506B to a C, and we're going to take a little bit of more time here because that was really the topic. Okay, and we'll let Todd talk a little bit here in a second. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is this is happening more and more. And part of the reason it's happening more and more, for those of you that have been in the syndicating space, it's gotten a little harder to raise money. So what a lot of syndicators have done, and what we did, in fact, in the offering we're going to talk about tonight, we knew that we had a lot of friends that wanted to invest in our syndication, but they were not accredited. So we actually pre-planned to make a switch. We had a cutoff date. And so we were able to advertise to our friends and family. We did a webinar where people had to verify that they had a relationship with somebody in the webinar. And then we went through everything to verify that we had an existing relationship with them. And then you draw this line in the sand. And when the line in the sand is drawn, you can no longer take a non-accredited investor. So Todd, that's a very simple overview. Maybe you could provide for the audience a little more detail and a little more color.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, this is Todd Robinson. I'm an attorney based in Atlanta, Georgia, primarily focusing on real estate syndications, commercial real estate investment and finance opportunities for all types of assets around the country. So I think Trevor stated it pretty clearly. When these rules came out during the Jobs Act a long time ago, the private equity, it was really just 506B at the time. And the purpose of the SEC, is to protect investors, right? So that's why they had to limit and we'll call them sophisticated investors, investors that are unaccredited from a financial perspective, but still sophisticated. And that's important because, and I give this presentation nationally all the time, but when I do a separate syndication presentation, there's a difference between, a contact in your database that is, a retired school teacher down the street who, ran into or got a large settlement or an estate, that has no idea about finance and real estate and things like that. That could be challenged as whether that person is even sophisticated enough to invest in a private offering. Investors generally have to have a sufficient amount of knowledge in finance and real estate to even be approached for an investment opportunity. Now, is that challenged often? No, especially these days, the SEC is laser focused on crypto. They're not really even worrying about these kinds of things. So not to say, it's not to be careful, but that's the reason why this exemption existed, to really provide access to private capital. Well, then the private equity market came along and said, well, look, we have these, broad platforms. We want to be able to advertise our investment opportunities. And again, this is different from going the broker-dealer route and being connected with a broker-dealer and advertising that way. This is an exempt offering. And so what the government came back with, the SEC, was, okay, well, you can advertise. We'll allow you to do that, but you can only advertise to accredited investors. And Trevor stated what the rule is for accredited investors. And that definition is actually going to expand. I mean, the House, I think, three weeks ago passed new legislation defining or updating what the accredited investor standard is. It hasn't passed the Senate yet. It's not law, but hopefully it will.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if you want me to just keep going, so the reason why we switched why some investors switch is that, in most indicators, they start off as a 506B offering just because, we call it the friends and family exemption. That's the exemption that everyone gets their foot in the door. What is a substantive pre-existing relationship? It's not really well defined by the SEC. I mean, we've read the federal case law on the matter. We've read the tea leaves from enforcement actions with the SEC to kind of decipher what that means. And usually there used to be something called like the 3-touch rule. That was kind of an industry standard where if you met somebody 3 times, after that 3rd time, whether it's coffee, an email communication, maybe you saw them at an event, after that 3rd time, they would sort of be in your network and you would have a substantive pre-existing relationship. Again, there's no hard and fast rule. The one rule that kind of is hard and fast is if you're advertising, even a 506B deal, and not advertising, but if you have a 506B deal and you want to start raising capital and somebody approaches you that is a friend of a friend, and that person is not on the GP team, so to speak, they do not have a pre-existing substantive relationship with you, so they are not able to invest in that opportunity. And so they would need to invest in the subsequent opportunity. Now that's your first contact with them. You add them to your database, you add them to your marketing platform, and you kind of keep them in the loop for your opportunities, but you would not be able to add them to that particular deal. Now in a 506C, you would, as long as you go through the verification standards to verify their accreditation. Now, verifying their accreditation is an easy process, but sometimes some sponsors, get a little weird just asking somebody to show me your financials. I mean, show me your tax returns, show me your brokerage account statement, show me your, you got to prove to them that you have you meet the net worth requirements. But investors can provide that accreditation through their lawyers. I mean, I've written hundreds of letters for my clients providing their accreditation standards. They can get it from their CPAs. You can also have your investment software do it. So if you use AppFolio or Syndication Pro or Juniper Square, one of those platforms, they often have an accreditation mechanism within that. And so that takes the heat off of the sponsor who may feel a little awkward asking somebody to send me their brokerage account statement to prove their accreditation. You let your third party do it. But the other big change in a 506C is that the burden is on the sponsor to verify that accreditation. 506B, when we do the syndication documents, we still provide an investor questionnaire, and that investor questionnaire will check off whether they are accredited or not, just so we can meet, we have the sufficient amount of non-accredited and or unaccredited and accredited investors. And we've discharged our duties at that point. We've asked them, we can rely on what's called self-certification in a 506B scenario. 506C, you have to take it a step further and actually get verification and visually see what the net worth is. And then you just tuck that away in your file, and if anyone ever comes asking for it, you're able to show that.
Awesome.
So really,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So I was just gonna say, like, the big switch, and Trevor, mentioned this in his opening, is when sponsors, they may have trouble raising capital in a 506B because they lack the friends and family to finish up the capital raise. And so we have to, like Trevor said, draw a line in the sand of when that conversion occurs. And then from that point on, the unaccredited investors can stay in the deal, but we can no longer take any additional unaccredited investors. We can only take accredited investors at that point. And then we can advertise. Now, our job is a little harder because we then have to prepare conversion documents, because we prepared one, it's basically a separate offering, right? We prepared the 506B offering, and then we're converting to a C. We have to prepare another set of documents for offering for the new 506C investors, and then provide notice to the prior 506B investors that are staying in the deal. So it's important too that, you sign your subscription agreement before that date occurs to subscribe to the investment offering.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you. And one other thing I want to talk a little bit about, some people think, oh, a 506C is a better offering than a 506B. And that is not the case. It's just a different offering, right? The fact that it's a 506B offering or a C offering has nothing to do with the quality of the offering. You always need to assume that you need to understand, you need to know your sponsors. You know, we talk about know, like, and trust. We talk about all of those things. So never assume just because an offering is a 506C that it's, oh, it's a better one. It's somehow been changed in the regular. It is not, okay? It's just who you can solicit to that makes a huge difference. And another thing I want to make sure that gets clear, that I've talked to a lot of, I've been doing this for a while, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of sophisticated new investors actually know more because they're spending their, their hard-earned $50,000, $100,000 that they worked really hard to save. And sometimes an accredited investor just had a really good job, had a windfall in life, had whatever it is. And it doesn't mean that they've taken the time to become an accredited investor. And we see a great question in the chat, and we'll definitely get to that. One of the things that I wanted to do here was just give you an example of some of the things we did. So this little thing on the left-hand side, this is when it was a 506B. We could not send that to anybody other than we had a relationship with. We clearly stated that it's a 506B offering. We must have an established relationship. We had a way in our webinar, you could not join the webinar with, or you couldn't even sign up for the webinar without, so I always say I've known Mike for 3 years. Even had to get into the webinar. I do that over and over again. Mike's pretty soon I'm gonna change it to 4 years, but but I have to go in and verify who I am and what I'm doing and who I know. And then you also have to verify that when you're going through and doing all your documents. Now, we have a webinar for this particular offering coming up Thursday, June 27th. Okay, and by the way, too, I could not talk about this last week at our meeting. We always said we have something sneak peek thing. If you know anybody, ask, but we don't talk about it, okay? But now we can talk about it. So it's kind of our case study. So 1 month earlier, we did this, launched this particular deal as a 506B, and then we switched it actually officially today. The documents actually got uploaded within an hour of our webinar. But you have to make sure again that everything is closed, everything is signed, everything is done. And now this is a 506C offering for accredited investors only, and we can start marketing it now. And then you'll see on here, we make sure we do. It's a 506C for accredited offering. This is some marketing that we've made. So this is a particular property. It's our second one in the Denver market. When you get the replay of this webinar, there'll be a link to sign up. We did not want to create the link until we were all official. So the link's being created, and then we'll have that, and it will be sent out to everybody to be able to join up if you're interested to learn about our next offering in Denver. So it's a great deal. And then while we're talking about deals we can, this is our X-Space deal. We've talked about it a few times. It is filling up. We're about 2/3 committed into this particular opportunity. It's an excellent opportunity. So if you have not talked to anybody in the Massive Capital group, feel free to reach out to us. And then next week, we are going to talk about why is multifamily still a smart investment. So make sure that you don't miss out that. And we're going to go to Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see more of our lovely faces. And Jonathan's going to help out a little bit more with the Q&A. I don't know if you want to just go through the questions or how you want to do that, Jonathan.
Yeah, so
Trevor just put me on the spot.
no, that's okay. No, I had to unclick my my microphone so I can actually talk. Todd, how long does the process actually take to do a conversion?
Not long. I mean, we just need a little bit of heads up to get it done. To get the actual documentation in order. We want to make sure we meet the closing deadline for the project, but as long as we have that line in the sand of when that conversion takes place, it just takes us, a week or so to finalize the conversion documents.
And how does one pick the cutoff date? Is there some rule that should be followed, or do you just pick a day on the calendar?
No, I mean, it's generally just, sponsor driven, what works best for the capital raising team, as far as when that date would be. And one other thing I wanted to mention also, it was noodling around in my head when we were talking, is that the relationship to the investor must be with somebody on the GP team. So that's an important distinction. So if there's an investor that has a relationship with an investor, that investor can't go ask that other investor to invest with her into Massive's deal, because Massive may not know this once removed investor, so to speak. So just wanted to make sure that was a distinction there, because unless someone is having an interest in the GP team, they can't, then we're getting into what's called a fund of a fund, which is a whole different topic as far for capital raising.
Okay. Can the sponsor accept money after a conversion has taken place from a sophisticated investor? What are the limits of what can be done after that cutoff date?
I mean, if it's my understanding that you mean an unaccredited investor, after you switch to a 506C, you can't accept that money.
Okay.
After that conversion date has taken place, you can only accept cash from 506C investors.
Okay.
I'm sorry, accredited investors.
So just simply signing the documents would not be sufficient? Money coming
Well,
in?
and again, yeah, I mean, there's really no clear answer from the SEC about how that takes place. I mean, I think, it would be, if we have a signed subscription agreement, that for me would be the defining factor as to an investor's commitment to invest, right? I mean, that's all a subscription agreement is me committing to invest in this particular deal. So if we have a signed subscription agreement from a sophisticated but non-accredited investor prior to the cutoff date, but then they wire after the cutoff date, that's fine, because we have the commitment ahead of time.
Okay.
But if you have sophisticated investors that are thinking about it, but they may have expressed a soft commitment, they expressed their interest on the website or whatnot, but they haven't actually signed the documents, then I think they would be precluded from investing once the conversion happens.
Okay, excellent. Do we want to open up to some questions and then?
Yeah, so
do the
feel
chat?
free to put it in the chat, unmute yourself. Again, the goal of our webinars is to educate, to make sure that we educate everybody on different things. So put in the chat, unmute yourself.
So somebody asked if there's a difference in the upper limit of a project offering that can be funded through a 506B or a 506C.
Yeah, I saw that. I responded, I think, when either Trevor or one of you guys was talking. So there's no limit in the amount of capital that can be raised under each exemption. There are some limits with the investors under both offerings. I mean, if you have upwards of 2,000 investors, you run into full reporting requirements under the SEC regulations, and and that's not something that it's recommended that you provide notice to the SEC of that to avoid any liability under 10b-5, but it's not necessarily required. But most large institutional investors that operate under the exemptions will provide notice if they have that amount of investors.
And Lewis is proof you're never nobody's too young to come to our webinars. Look at that. Look at her. She's just like so awesome to see her there. I love it when kids show up at the webinars and things. So any other questions? I really expected more questions. So maybe so no changes to the PPM inscription agreement. So I believe that is incorrect. We upload a whole new subscription agreements. Is that correct, Todd?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We have to, because the documents are geared towards, I mean, the language is geared towards the 506B offering. So we do have to revise the PPM and the subscription agreement to be geared towards 506C and accredited investors only.
Yeah, and I know we took down all of our B documents after everything was signed, and then we upload the new C documents. Again, just to make sure there's no, like, you clicked the wrong button and, you know, next thing you know, we weren't following guidelines. So it's super important.
Right.
That you use some sort of system to be able to track that. Because none of us look that good in orange.
Hmm.
No.
We've got to have some more
Yeah.
questions in the group. I really thought
I-
this. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, hey, thanks guys. Thanks a lot, Trevor, Todd. I actually wanted to ask a question of something. I think we had touched base on this and heard some different things and was just really curious about, is there a limit to like the number of times you could do this, or the time frame between doing one deal or another deal of five from a B to a C? Any guidelines around that, or is it
I
kind
have,
of a gray area,
Yeah,
a gray open area? Just curious.
yeah, from my research and reading the tea leaves, it's a gray area. I mean, I haven't seen anything that has said if you convert once, you can't convert for another, you know, how many days or years. No, I haven't seen anything like that. Mm-mm.
Okay.
So,
And go ahead.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Trevor. No, go ahead.
so I know Simon, you had a question on our chat earlier. I don't know if you, it's a little bit off topic on this, but it is in the same realm. I don't know if you want to ask your question. You're too busy fishing.
Trying to unmute myself. Hey, how are you? Yeah, the question was about setting up a tick and you know, reviewing the documents. Todd, or is that something that you can do?
Yeah, we do. Almost all of our deals have tenant in common agreements these days, just because there's so much 1031 money sitting out there from all the sales that have happened over the past couple of years. So yeah, most of our deals have either a drop and swap on the sales side or a 1031 acquisition on the buy side. So yeah, we do that all the time.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you can share your information, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they can be. I knew I was going to comment. What's a drop and swap? I guess that's colloquial. You know, that's there's a more sophisticated way of explaining that, but the drop and swap is what we call it. But a drop and swap is basically when you're selling an asset and you have an investor that wants to 1031 their own individual proceeds. So if you've got, you know, someone wants to, they're going to get $500,000 and they don't want to pay taxes on that. They want to do a 1031, but they're inside of a syndication, right? So they're an LP. I always go back to the org chart, but they're an LP in the asset entity. So they're not really a property owner. They own a membership interest in the property owner. So how do they get from out here to down here being a property owner? Well, you have to drop them from that ownership entity. And the way you do that is the property owner sells a undivided portion of the real property to the investor. You know, that's the drop, I guess. And then the swap is you then they become a tenant in common on the sales side. And then at that point they sell, this is getting into the weeds, obviously way off topic, but at that point they sell the property both as joint grantors to the buyer in their undivided percentage interest. So if you have an investor that owns, you know, 12% of the deal based on their investment, it would be, you know, 78% and 12% or 82% and 12% as tenants in common selling to the buyer. And then on the settlement statement, that investor would have a qualified intermediary in place, and then the funds would be distributed directly to the QI And then then they satisfy, 1031 regulations under the IRS regs.
Awesome. I think I had a girlfriend do that to me, but it wasn't that complicated.
Wow.
So you-
Yeah.
Simon, you brought up an interesting question, and I know this gets into a little bit further into the weeds, but I suspect that most 1031 investors are accredited investors, but not necessarily. Are they subject, is the sponsor subject to the 506 BC rules with a tenant in common investor? Because they are only having an
well-
ownership in the property itself.
So 1031, if you're taking on 1031 for an acquisition, that individual cannot be a part of the syndicated entity, or that entity cannot be so they're not even in the equation
Right.
of whether they're accredited or non-accredited investor. They are a separate and distinct purchaser of that real property. Because the minute you add them to the operating agreement, or you give them a preferred return under the syndicated operating agreement, it becomes a partnership, and it collapses the tenant in common legal ownership of the real property. So there's been some confusion in the past couple of years regarding that, because we've had some clients say, oh, well, he's putting in 500,000 and we're going to give him a pref and he's going to sign a subscription agreement. And that just, if the IRS ever investigated that or did an enforcement action, that they would collapse that. They would collapse that structure, and they would just denote it as a partnership. So yes, the answer to the question is that if you can get a 1031 investor to invest with you, but they are not subject to accreditation standards because they're their own purchaser of the real property. And then the important distinction is their returns have to match their investment amount, or their ownership percentage rather. So if they own 12% of the real property, they can get 12% returns back. And we have some ways, some smoke and mirrors that we work with, commission agreements and other kind of agreements that can bake in some fees that the 1031 investor can be entitled to for services provided by the sponsor, because you can't really get your acquisition fee on that 1031 investor because they're not within your syndication. But you're certainly still providing services to that investor. So we use a commission agreement to document that relationship on the back end.
And there is a question in the chat. Anything with a 1031 has to be owned for at least a year, correct? Otherwise, it's you can't everything.
Well, I didn't quite understand that. I mean, you don't have to hold it for. You mean as far as holding like an LP wants to hold their investment for a year before they can 1031 out? I think that's what the question is.
No, I think it's anything held under a year is considered not considered a long-term investment.
Maybe for capital gains purposes,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if we're talking about the taxation. But again, you can 1031 defers the taxes regardless of how long it's held. Yeah.
Awesome.
And what the advice I usually give my clients is don't offer the drop and swap to everybody, because then you're going to have, your $25,000 or $50,000 retail investor who made, another $100,000, but still you can't, the IRS will scrutinize a sale when you have, 15 grantors under a deed, so what I would usually say is reserve that for your cornerstone investors, if you have them, or your high net worth investors, or even put a dollar amount, an investor that puts in over $500,000 or $1 million, because it is sort of it's a value, it's an added value that you can provide to your investors, and there's a process to do it. But it's difficult to do it for everybody.
Awesome. Was this worthwhile for you folks? I don't know, put a 10 in the chat if you think we offered a little bit of value. I definitely thought there'd be a few more questions, so this is great.
I have a question on top of that with the tick. So
Yeah.
as the 1031 is now a partner in the deal, and let's say the
No,
split
not a
from-
partner. Not a partner. Nope, not a partner.
Okay.
1031 is an owner of the real property. Okay.
They're yes, okay. They're the owner of the property, and let's say the split between GP, LP is 80-20, then if they own, like you said, 12%, the amount of the funds that was invested into the deal is equivalent to 12%. How do you take the 20% out of the 12% to give back to
Yeah,
the
and-
GP to make it fair for them? It's got to be worthwhile for the GP, correct?
Well, and this is why I didn't become an accountant, because I don't know how that works on the back end. I mean, that's gonna be your financial modeling experts out there that are gonna have to look at how to back into those figures. But you're right, if it's an 80-20 split under your syndication documents, you have to treat that 12% as almost separate and distinct, you know, from the 80-20, and you have to factor that into your model to see what the overall returns will be to the other investors and to you as the GP, right? Because you're not getting your promote on that 12% because it's just treated outside the scope of the syndication.
Awesome. And I know we're a
I
little
have
off
a-
track in the 1031. We do have one more question in the chat. You can
Okay.
come from a single family. You could sell a single family that you own and put it into a multi-family through a 1031, because that's a
Right,
lifetime.
but not as an LP. So you can't, if you sell a single family home and you completed a 1031 and your money's sitting with a qualified intermediary and you want to invest in a multifamily deal, you then have to do that as a tenant in common.
Right.
You know, under a tenant in common arrangement, not as a true LP.
Oh,
That's
hey,
correct.
Trevor.
Yes, sir.
Oh, this is a great question. Oh wait, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I was just noticing, I think we were missing as well, Trevor, I think it was added over here because there were some questions in the Q&A besides the chat.
Oh, I
So,
didn't see the Q&A.
yeah, and it may
Oh,
be,
yeah,
I think
that's
it's the
it.
same. Barb just copied it over to the chat now.
Thanks.
Well, so Barb's question, if I ultimately want to be a GP or owner of a property, is there value in investing passively in your deals as an LP? Yes, because that builds your track record. You know, that you can then put on your own pitch deck when you want to go out and get your own deals of, hey, look how many units I've invested in. And a lot of times you'll see, if you, like, I speak at Rod Khleif's events all the time, and a lot of the warriors that they have, you know, will have, okay, I've got, you know, 1,000 doors as an LP, but, you know, 600 or 300 doors as a GP. I mean, I think any investment activity is beneficial to build your track record and just to build your knowledge base of these types of transactions. There's a question, tenancy in common will create ownership violation difficulties. Yes and no. The way we structure it sometimes, it depends on who your TIC partner is, but if it's a passive investor who really doesn't want anything to do with the property, doesn't have an ego, you can create the manager of each TIC entity to be the same. So if it's a massive entity, for instance, and you're investing with massive, you know, we could have, you know, Cottonwood massive manager is managing the syndication, but then Cottonwood massive manager is also managing the TIC entity, so that all the decisions flow through the same entity. And then your TIC partner is not going to cause you any trouble because you're managing both entities. But under a true tenancy in common arrangement, you're supposed to share in the, you know, profits and losses of the property ownership equally. And the TIC agreement, you know, outlines how that works. So if you do as far as difficulties are concerned, if you get into business or get into property ownership with someone that the relationship may turn sour, you could get into some difficulties where you disagree on the ownership, you disagree on the distribution or the management, and then you're going before a court asking for a partition of the property. So that's really the worst outcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
And
And
then,
somebody pointed out that my link that I posted on the Houston X-Base didn't work. So it's good to know that people are actually looking at my links. Thank you for that.
so there was a interesting, nice little question there that somebody else put in there about
Yeah.
participating, right?
Yeah, does participating in these Zoom meetings qualify as establishing a relationship with a 506B requirement? I mean, I don't know, probably not. I would say probably not, but a follow-up with one of the massive guys and an exchange of numbers and, you know, a coffee date or maybe an email or a personal Zoom call, you know, would probably qualify as getting there. I think just attending a webinar is not going to establish a relationship, but it's going to be more than that.
Besides, we're all nice. You want to talk to us.
I was curious. Just curious, Todd, and throwing this out. I'm curious if you know the ratio or the volume of 506B versus 506C. What's, you know, how many of those are done a year? How many come
Yeah.
through your office? Maybe just.
I mean, we probably do 175 transactions a year, maybe, roughly, maybe a little bit less than that. And I would say most of them are probably 506Cs, but everyone starts out with a 506B because that's just where you start. I mean, and when you're just, you know, especially if you have your W-2 job and you're trying to make the jump from W-2 to real estate investor full time, I mean, you don't have a Rolodex full of accredited investor contacts and networks, but you will eventually, you know, go to these webinars and be in this space for long enough, you will, but most people start with a 506B. But I don't know the ratio, Mike, off the top of my head, what it would be. That'd be an interesting.
I was just curious, but and I think what you said is, you know, probably, you know, that's for sure what we see, and that's been the trend. Just the trend for us, trend for others. I know a few that actually have stayed 506B for almost ever. Just they started a long time ago and they build up a great data set, and they just invest internally within their group, basically.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you handle Sam's question there, the next one.
Yeah. The average cost to create a 506B versus the C. I mean, the cost for either is the same. You know, we usually flat fee it between, you know, $10,000 and $12,000 or $13,000, depending on the type of deal. If we convert, it's usually another, you know, $2,000 to $3,000 just to go through the conversion process. And we usually flat fee it, and that's, you know, that's your PPM, your subscription agreement, your operating agreement for both companies, the investor questionnaire, and then the Form D filings with the SEC and the Blue Sky filings with whatever state the investors are located in.
And I can't stress enough too, this is not something you want to do on LegalZoom.
No, I don't think you can.
You want a professional, your brother who went to law school, you know, you want to make sure, again, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, right? Creating your team. And we mentioned that this person on your team, this is a very valuable part of your team because you are doing a securities offering. Those guys are serious people, and you want to make sure that you dotted your I's and crossed your T's. I know Massive Capital, we work very hard to make sure that we're in compliant. We have great tracking systems for talking with people, making sure that we're in compliance. It's super, super important. Todd has posted his information in the chat. And we really appreciate it. And it was great to see Todd actually came up to our X-Space open house. I was surprised to see him here. I was like, walk out, I'm like, hey, I know you. And in fact, I think we met almost 3 years ago when I was a wannabe. Now I'm an almost be. You know, but we were working on a deal. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it was at a Rod Khalifa event in Orlando.
Yeah.
And you know, real estate, again, it's a team sport, right? You want to make sure that you have professionals on your team that can help you do things legally and correctly. Syndication, while it once it's done, you can get it done. It is a complicated legal process. And you can tell I'm Canadian when I say process. I could say that and out and about. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that X-Base deal was amazing. I was blown away when I saw. I mean, I can't wait to see what the Houston one looks like.
Yeah, it's gonna be
I was just like,
incredible.
what is it? I was like, what is this concept? You need. I mean, I was thinking of land in Atlanta. I was like, we need to build this here. We need to build this here. So it's quite a good opportunity. Heavily recommend that.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, we're almost at the end here. Jasmine's
I have another
Jasmine's gonna call
question.
you to invest after this, Todd, so you.
What did Jasmine say? You said, oh, Todd said he can't wait to invest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That was
Absolutely.
actually, so, hey, Sam's question, I just wanted to, was where I was gonna go with this next question and follow up with you a little bit. So, you know, I'm kind of thinking of the answer, but let you kind of maybe elaborate on it more about a fund, you know, and how long could you do a 50, you know, could you do this for a fund for a long term type thing? How long could you do a B before you change to a C? Things like that. You know, any restrictions related to those types of items?
Yeah, no restrictions. I mean, it's really about the sponsor's network. You know, as far as what kind of offering you want to offer. You know, if it's more of a sophisticated network and you want to advertise, then you do a C. If you want to just, you're starting out, you don't know as many sophisticated investors or accredited investors, and you want to go with the 506B. Now, if you're transitioning to a fund structure, we do funds as well all the time, and that's really, I feel like that there's a jumping off point for a lot of investors as to when they stop syndicating and they start raising funds. You know, a fund is really about developing that trust with investors that they will give you their money blindly and let you just make money with their money without any strings attached. I mean, that's really what a fund is. You know, a fund structure is still, depending on what kind of fund, I mean, you have to comply with the exemptions, but you also have to comply with the Investment Advisors Act. There's restrictions around that, and the Investment Company Act, and there's restrictions around that, regulations around that, that when we look at it, we figure out which ones apply when we're doing fund structures. But fund structures are more complicated because it's usually a blind fund where the money can be used by the manager at the manager's discretion for whatever investment purposes. There's usually a time frame for a fund, you know, a 5-year hold with 2 1-year extensions. And so all of that plays into your investment strategy. So I wouldn't recommend starting out with a fund unless you've got somebody that's just willing to give you capital and let you run with it. And there's a really kind of, I don't know if he's a famous investor, but he's a really old school investor here in Atlanta called Norman Radow. And he started Radco Residential, and he's got his name all over Kennesaw State University. I mean, he's a really old investor. He still to this day syndicates every single acquisition. You know, he does a 506C for every single one. You know, so there's nothing. The fund has a lot of strings attached to it and a lot more red tape. So if you can handle that, then fund may be good. I'm sure he could have done a fund along the way, but he just syndicates every single one of them.
Cool, thank you. There's another question, but I want to jump one thing, Todd, and I'll let you get to the next question.
Yeah.
Just because I want to let everybody know as well, we posted here a few times for people. So you got Todd's contact. I'll drop it down there again. And then I put in here, Maria's put it a few times as well. If you guys want to connect with us, there's this massive.capital access. You can come to our, I'll show it real quick, what it brings up for you, so you're not afraid of it. It basically comes to just a little site here, and you can pick if you're interested in getting signed up for more Wednesday webinars, the Massive Capital Girls Group Society, introductory calls just to meet up, and you can pick and see who you want to join with. We're still fixing that up, but it should be that way. Submit your deals, our investor portal. You can sign up in the investor portal. There's no fees for doing that. There's no obligation, but you see the deals. One of the cool things I want to mention this, Todd, we worked with, so we work with Cashflow Portal now.
Yeah.
And we got them to change around things so that when people sign up, they come in, they can't see any of the 506B deals. So they can only see the 506C deals until we confirm that we have a relationship with them, and then they get to see
Oh,
our
good.
506B deals.
That's great.
And then there's our coaching, and then some other things, passive investor checklist, IRA ebook. So guys, check out that access. It's really cool. And quick way to get connected into a number of things with Massive.
And we do these webinars every Wednesday night, always a different topic. If next week we're talking about, is it still safe to invest in multifamily? And there was one question, difference between syndication and hard money lenders. I mean, I think it's like apples and oranges, really.
Yeah, I mean, what it makes syndication SEC security, but not hard money lenders. I mean, hard money lenders, you're talking about debt. The SEC protects equity, investors' investment in deals as equity. Hard money lenders, if they are loaning money, that is a debt instrument that's governed under, state law. Now, that's not to say we've done debt funds where we have created funds for hard money lenders that then go out and lend the money that they raise. The money that they raise is a syndication, typically, and is a debt fund, and so that is a syndication. But then they use that equity and they create debt, and then we prepare the loan documents to the borrower. That in and of itself is not a security because it's not equity, it's debt. So that's the difference.
Yeah, and then sometimes too, some people get a little confused on a joint venture deal versus a syndication. And I've seen some new friends that are just starting out saying they're doing a joint venture deal looking for investors. And that's a dangerous area. Joint venture deal is completely different than a syndication.
Yeah, we could,
That's a whole other webinar.
Five webinars in one. But the joint, I mean, really the biggest distinction is the control and management of the asset. If you have equal partners putting in, it doesn't have to be equal amount of money, but providing equal value and getting equal value in return, and no one is passive, both people are actively managing the asset, then it's typically a joint venture. You can have a joint venture with 5 partners, if all 5 of you put in an equal amount and the company's managed by its members by majority consent. I mean, things like that. It's just how you structure the operating agreement depends on whether it's a joint venture or a syndication.
Awesome.
But I always get the question like, oh, I just have one investor. He's going to put in the capital, but I'm going to do all the work. He doesn't want anything. Well, that's a syndication. I mean, the SEC doesn't say, well, if you just have one, you're fine. You don't have to worry about SEC regulations. I mean, it doesn't matter how many investors you have, even if it's one and it's passive. I mean, the definition of a security is providing money and you're expecting a rate of return in exchange specifically for the sponsor's efforts, right? Like they're making money based on the sponsor's efforts. That's from a Supreme Court case like 1948. They define what an investment contract is. And so that's your true definition. So if someone's coming to you and saying, here's my money, but I don't want to do anything, I'm hands off, that's passive. You're in the securities world.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming out tonight, Todd, and taking care of this. And please, every Wednesday, we do these webinars at 6 o'clock. Our goal is to have open, honest sharing information. Everybody learns something. And we hope that you got some good value. These are always uploaded to Massive Capital's YouTube page, but you will get an email with a link to. Feel free to share, feel free to invite, feel free to connect with us. Any closing words, Mike?
No, this is great. I think, excellent topic. I learned a lot myself, things that I thought I knew, and was good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was super good. Thank you so much, Todd and Jonathan.
Absolutely.
And Todd,
You want to
or,
make lawyers nervous, tell them you're going to do a legal presentation. Jonathan had hair before I told him this. No, I'm only kidding. No, this is.
What's that, Mike?
oh, I think we're still looking for our next trip out to Atlanta. So I think we're looking to
Okay,
come out
good.
for a
Well-
meetup in
Well, Jeff has it looks like the airport lined up for you on his
I
screenshot.
think it's gonna be July 14th or so.
Hey,
So-
yeah, that's the next. I'm actually speaking at that meetup. If it's the same people that we're talking about, there's like an Atlanta apartment, multifamily, something or other meetup I got invited to. So I think it's the same one.
Okay, good. We're
July 14th.
so that'll be an awesome one then. Because we'll be part of that, sponsoring part of that as well, Massive Capital. So
Awesome.
be bringing some
Very
people
good.
in. Gonna go visit. Gonna go down to Macon and Warner Robins as well and do some visits there. Scout
Sounds
a
good.
place. Scout a new X Space location in Atlanta.
One of these days, Mike will bring me on his private jet to one of these.
One day, Trevor, we'll all be there.
Well, so in theory, we officially concluded, doesn't mean we go anywhere. Todd, if you need to go, because I know it's later there, we do happy hour, which just if anyone has any questions, although we covered about 6 topics tonight. It was great. We hope that everybody, but if anyone has any questions, anything they'd like to talk about, just unmute yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is as Trevor said, we just go into the happy hour free time, and it doesn't have to be about the topic, and it doesn't even have to be about multifamily, just whatever you guys want to talk about. And Todd, you can just drop off anytime you feel you need to.
Yeah, I'm gonna head out. I gotta put these kiddos to bed.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll see y'all later. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Todd.
lot.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
And
guys.
Jeff, make sure I don't know if you're connected in for the Atlanta meetups, and we're gonna be having another one coming up, probably second week of July up in Denver.
Cool. I'm
Hey, Jeff.
a little connected. I'm getting more connected in Atlanta as we speak. So
Good.
That's awesome. I tell
It's
you
good
what, real estate is a team sport. And
It
and
is.
who you know makes all the difference in the world, getting connected in with people.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Nice to see you here, Jeff. It was good
Nice
to see you
too,
in
sir.
good to see you in Dallas a few weeks ago as well.
Yeah, well, it's always fun when we can reconnect from time to time, whether it's here or whether it's there or somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Adam Cantrell came in a little late, but it's good to see you come in, Adam. Let's see. Who else? Anybody else got anything they want to share or question or chat about real quick?
Has your son made it back from Brazil yet, Mike?
No, Kyle gets back from Brazil around the 5th, I think, July 4th, 5th.
Okay,
somewhere
so
in
he's still on vacation then. Good for him.
there. Yeah, but then he's going straight to work when he gets back. So
Well, you got to catch up. I understand.
yeah. So yeah, Kyle will be going spend a little time here in Houston, then he's going to Illinois to work on rehabbing some apartments and houses. Working on the inside.
Sweet.
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Hey.
Hey, Jasmine, I don't think I know anybody else on here. How are y'all doing?
Hey, Adam, how you doing, man? What you
Very
up
good.
to?
Oh, man, jumped in. I'm all over the place. Jumped into a cookie company, trying to scale that thing, take over the world,
All right, another new venture. That's awesome.
Yeah, I invest in businesses a lot, and
Yeah.
then if those go well, then I throw that in real estate. So,
Everybody
Yeah, we-
loves cookies.
Everybody.
oh yeah,
loves cookies.
oh yeah. Bad and Weird Cookie, shameless plug.
Nice.
We definitely need to keep following up because we are looking, as we move forward, Massive Capital, is both investing in properties as well as business. So businesses more related to what we do, but it's always good to hear and see
Well,
people.
yeah, we got a hell of an opportunity, buddy.
Okay.
Give me a call.
It's good. So what's up, Liz? What do you got going on, Liz?
Oh, just hanging out with my good friends in Massive Capital. Great job tonight. My investors a bunch of them are new. This is their first time around. And so when they hear, this B will go to a C, they kind of where all the questions started flying. So this is great. Now I have answers. So very helpful.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Hey, for those that don't know Liz, she's celebrating a big moment that her mother invested in multifamily real estate after Liz has been doing a lot in real estate for the past few years, connected up with us. And, that's how this all starts. We talk about it, right? Friends and
Right.
family.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great to- Great. Yeah, I see a lot of people hanging out. It's good to see Luis and Masha. We met up in Dallas and Johnny. So I imagine I missed some others, but it's great to see people coming out and hanging out for a bit. Any other questions y'all got about anything?
Please
got-
don't leave me out. If you guys meet in Georgia, invite me. I'd like to be there.
Say that again, Luis?
If you guys meet up in Atlanta, invite me so I can be there.
Oh, okay. But you're in Dallas, man. Or no, you're in no, that's right.
Virginia.
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 Yeah, Virginia. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
From
I've been
Virginia.
in Florida and I've been in Dallas for all these meetups. And if you go to Atlanta, let me know so I can
Okay.
meet you there.
All right, 100%.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's Sam and Natasha is close to there as well. So it's a monthly meetup with a group that have been close with Massive Capital. Barbara, boss lady, she's there in Atlanta, runs it with a couple other people, Ben and I'm forgetting some of the names right now, but they started up at the beginning of the year, been doing it, or maybe end of last year, been doing it now for a few months, and Massive has been pushing, helping, participating in that on a monthly, pretty much continuous basis, supporting them. So that it's just an evening meetup, and then we usually try to connect to go either visit our properties that we have that are down in Macon and Warner Robins on, come in maybe on a Friday. The meeting is usually the Friday, and then we go to Warner Robins and Macon on a Saturday or Friday morning, and then a Saturday morning. So where to get the information? So I would say connect with somebody, one of us here, and we will be posting. We usually post, and we're setting up an events page right now that'll be soon coming out on Massive Capital. So we'll have a tab for events. But currently, the way to do it would just be connect with Trevor or Jasmine, get into this, sign up, into the webinars here, and you'll be getting our information about webinars, events, things. I think there's going to be one in Denver as well, like was said. So. Alrighty.
Thanks, everybody, so much for coming out. And
Yeah, I'm gonna head
next
out
week,
as well.
invite somebody.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night, okay?
Thanks, Louis. Thank you,
The
man.
more the
Appreciate it.
merrier. Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Good night. Thanks.
All right. Have
Good
a
night,
good night.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.